Turn my mic on. Lord, we're meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll move to item 2, will be approval of the agenda. And we do have one item, item 7.3, that the applicant has asked to be deferred. Entertain a motion of approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go to item 3, citizen comments. You have any tonight? No comments tonight. Item 4 will be approval of the minutes from the May 9th, 2017 regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5 will go into bonds. Item 5.1, Deer Valley Downs subdivision, letter of credit in the amount of $464,000 to cover the roads, sidewalks, storm drainage, and other improvements specified by the approved plans. Planning Commission set the amount on November 10th, 2014. Planning Commission reduced the amount on August 9th, 2016 to $225,000. Letter of credit expires May 21st, 2017. And there's no additional staff comments there.
Mr. Butler, I can
Yes, ma'am.
inform you that the letter has been sent, and they are supposed to be bringing in a new one this week.
Okay. We can go ahead and just call it for good measure to ensure that in case it doesn't come. Entertain a motion there.
Motion to call the bond if it's not in place by May 21st, 2017.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 5.2, Heartland Reserve subdivision, performance bond in the amount of $365,000 to cover the roads, sidewalks, storm drainage, and other improvements specified by the approved plans. Planning Commission set the bond on February 12, 2008. Planning Commission reduced the bond on June 14, 2011 to $250,000. Planning Commission reduced the bond on May 10, 2016 to $137,500. Bond expires June 30th, 2017. Mr. Costanza, do you have anything on that one?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the developer has since brought in the review bond.
Awesome. So no action needed on that one there.
Well, would we not have to make a motion to approve the renewal since it's going to expire?
They renewed it, they brought in the renewal.
They already brought it, but it doesn't need to be a formal motion to accept it. I don't know, I'm asking y'all.
It's probably up to the board. It's the same as what we were talking about the last one.
This one?
On June 30th, but they brought it in this week and renewed it.
Mine's got July 1st. I got a different thing than you.
Any comments on how we have done it in the past?
So, there's a new
We've
one.
never had a motion in the past that I recall. It's just always
Okay.
accepted a renewal.
Okay.
I got it now. They changed it on us, they brought it in. All right, so no action, is that correct? We want to,
I guess so.
okay, so we'll move to item 5.3, Brandenburg Cove subdivision, performance bond in the amount of $45,000 to cover the roads, sidewalks, storm drainage, and other improvements specified by the approved plans. Planning Commission set the bond on February 12, 2008. Bond expires July 1st, 2017.
No. This,
Mr. Owens?
I'm confused. Are we on 5.2 or 5.3?
Revised agenda
Okay.
that we got tonight.
Okay.
So this is 5.3 Brandenburg, but it's a
Okay.
new agenda, separate of what we had prior.
Okay, I am not in possession of that new agenda. I have not, inspected this subdivision, so I cannot speak for the release of this bond. I suspect that as-built plans would need to be provided prior to full release of the bond, but we would need to look at those files to see where exactly it stands.
Okay.
This is one of the bonds that, as you know, has been out for quite a while, continued to be renewed year after year, and I'm not aware of any work that has been done recently. Not to say it hasn't been done, but I'm not aware of it.
Excellent. And that was a conversation the BOC recently had, was about bonds, some that are lasting a little longer and trying to clean some of them up and stuff. So I guess for now, we can call the bond before it expires, and then they can come back to us to ask for release once our engineer has a chance to inspect and review. So I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to call the bond?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right, item 5.4, Kyles Creek Phase 2, Section 1, performance bond in the amount of $204,000 to cover the roads, sidewalks, storm drainage, and other improvements specified by the approved plans. Planning Commission set the bond on February 12, 2008. Planning Commission reduced the bond to $119,000 on January 13, 2012. Bond expires July 8, 2017.
I have sent them a letter to indicate that their bond will be expiring on July 8th, and that they need to renew.
Okay. So I entertain a motion. We want to go ahead and call that one?
Yeah, I make a motion to call the bond, Kyles Creek Phase 2, Section 2.
One.
Section 1.
Okay,
And we have Section 2 coming up.
okay. Okay,
Second.
1.
So we got a second. Powers with the second, Michael.
Then I got off like you.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Item 5.5, Kyles Creek Phase 2, Section 2, performance bond in the amount of $418,412.50 to cover the roads, sidewalks, storm drainage, and other improvements specified by the approved plans. Planning Commission set the bond on May 10th, 2016. Bond expires on July 8th, 2017.
Similar to the previous phase, I have also sent a letter to the developer indicating that this bond will expire on July 8th.
Perfect.
Motion to call the bond?
First and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item 5.6, discuss and/or take action on setting the reclamation bond for the Fairview Medical Facility. We have one staff comment there, just a short one, says staff recommends setting the site reclamation bond amount at $42,000. You guys could just maybe a quick brief explanation of what exactly reclamation was, 42,000, just to make sure.
Sure, the bonds that you guys take a look at, there's 3 different types of bonds. One is for private site development, so anything that is basically other than a single-family residential subdivision, any commercial site, industrial site, or apartment-type site would require a site reclamation bond. That bond is an amount is determined and put in place to stabilize the site if at any point during the construction the development stops or the developer abandons the site. The city would have a bond that would reclaim the site to stabilize it, primarily for erosion and stormwater control, so you're not affecting neighbors or adjacent public right-of-way, and to get it stabilized and then leave it. Site reclamation bonds are not in place to complete a private development, commercial, industrial, or multifamily in accordance with the plans that you approve. So those are site reclamation bonds. Subdivisions have two different types of bonds depending on which direction the developer chooses to pursue. Subdivisions have also a reclamation bond, and what that allows the developer to do is to pursue construction of the infrastructure that will serve the subdivision. So roads, drainage, sidewalks, landscaping, all the approved improvements on the construction plans. A developer can pursue that prior to final plat recording if he has submitted a reclamation bond. Same story for subdivisions, and the reclamation bond as is for site reclamation bond. If that developer goes bankrupt or leaves the site for whatever reason, abandons it, then the city would have a reclamation bond that is in place that will stabilize that site. The lots that were to be created in that subdivision do not legally exist yet because a final plat has not been recorded. So you would not run into a scenario where you have a homeowner that has purchased a house and is living in that subdivision and has an unfinished drainage system or an unpaved road. The second option the developer has is to pursue final plat approval and recording that would legally create those lots for that developer to sell. In that instance, a full performance bond amount is required. And so that amount would be established based on the engineer's estimate to actually install all of those improvements if the developer went bankrupt or abandoned the site, plus 25% of that estimate. And that's in the subdivision regulations as it exists today. So 125% of the engineer's estimate would be required for a performance bond. And so what that would ensure is all the improvements that are guaranteed on a final plat that creates those lots, that says to the developer, you can go sell these lots to a builder or to a citizen of Fairview that wants to build their own home on that particular lot, that the roads, the curbing, the sidewalks, the landscaping, all of that, that there is a guarantee in place with the city that all of that will be accomplished according to the approved plans, obviously at no cost to the city because you would have to call the bond if that went into place. It's a long-winded answer, but hopefully that clarifies the three different scenarios of bonds that this board sees.
Thank you. And this number is your recommendation for this reclamation bond based off that. Entertain a motion on item 5.6.
Motion to set the reclamation bond at $42,000.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move into item 6, old business. Item 6.1, Subway Retail Center, site plan, 2.16 acres, parcel located at 1411 Highway 96 North, map 18, parcel 18 and 19, parcel owned by Parkesh Patel, Mr. Patel. And we have some staff comments, and get Mr. Mangrum to read them there for 6.1.
Item 6.1, number 1, all previously issued review comments have been satisfied. Item 2, if the PC desires to set the site reclamation bond at this time, staff recommends setting the bond amount at $18,000.
Sir? Do we have a representative here tonight from Subway? Good evening, sir. How are you?
All right.
Good to state your name for me.
William Strasshofer.
Sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
when we were, this matter was before us at the previous planning commission meeting, we requested specifically that there be some drawings to show where the HVAC would be, so we can make sure that it was not going to be visible at any point. Reviewing the plans I've been provided, that was not done. And I thought we were very clear on that issue.
So, just let me ask one question real quick. So if this is the site plan, will we have an opportunity to discuss construction plans, or are we also looking at the building plans now? If that makes sense, that question there.
We review the site plan as well as the design review.
Okay, perfect. Just confirm. Do you have any comments on that HVAC location there?
I'm not aware of where they'll be located. I was not at the previous meeting, and I was not informed of that change that need to be put in.
And to that comment, it looks like the plans have parapet walls on the front and then on the sides, but the back is a wide open where it doesn't have a parapet wall, and it kind of faces at an angle 90 degrees to Highway 96, so when you're coming down 96, you're gonna have a pretty wide open view of that back opening. So I don't know if there's any discussion or any detail in our design review about view from main roads or anything like that, if that makes sense. So even if we did put them up on the roof, you might still be able to see them from behind is what I was saying, just thinking. And I believe our city arborist got an opportunity to review the landscape plan, and he had just one comment, was there was some crepe myrtles right there at the front entrance that didn't meet the approved species list that you guys were going to adjust. I don't know if you had an opportunity to change that plan yet.
Yes, sir, we changed those to red buds, and
Okay.
we submitted a new electronic copy of the plans with that
I'm
change.
sure he was happy to hear that.
Well, going back to the AC, is that something you can accommodate? Basically, we were talking about where it was gonna be placed and whether it could be seen. You know, is that something y'all can accommodate for us? Because it
Yes.
was discussed and agreed to.
Yes, we can accommodate that. We do have shrubbery behind the building, and we can put the 5x5 pads in the clear area between the building and the shrubbery without blocking the fire exit paths.
These are not gonna be rooftop units.
I'm sorry?
These are not gonna be rooftop units. These are gonna be.
I'm not personally aware of which kind. If they are rooftop, then we would have to get to the architectural engineer and find out some sort of screening for that. I simply know that from the landscape and the site plan itself, if we put them on the ground, we could screen them. That is a question I will have to pass up to find out what sort of units they're using.
Has everything else that was requested been met? Is that the only thing you see?
I did contact Frank Smith, who did design the site plan. Emailed Matt, it was May 15th via email, I sent him a list of comments. And I did specifically state that the HVAC concern was a major issue for the planning commission, that they did need to have some sort of plan for it, so. I did expect to see something on the revised plan, but with him not being here and having a representative in place, I'll just have to put what their
Well, that puts us in a interesting situation because without seeing it, it's going to be hard to approve. So, I mean, I don't know that we're any farther along.
I guess we can ask ourselves, is that something we're comfortable asking for staff to review, or do we want it to come back and see ourselves to confirm that location?
I know Commissioner Beata particularly was very concerned about that issue because in the past had been placed on contingencies and they weren't met. And he specifically spoke to that issue, wanting to see those plans so we could see them before it was
Confirm.
approved.
Sure. Any additional questions for the applicant?
I would move to defer this to the next meeting in July so that those plans can be provided for the HVAC so we can tell whether or not they're going to be screened. Are they going to be on the roof? Where on the roof? Or are they going to be on the ground? If we're going to screen them with what?
Motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Additional discussion? I think everything looks great. It's just, I think that's going to be a big sticking point for us. We've had some problems with it, so we want to make sure that we get it right before we send you on your way and miss it or get it wrong. So I think that's a good idea, just to be able to confirm it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, sir. All right, old business, item 6.2, Tentex Industrial Warehouse Facility, site plan, 3.87 acres, parcel located on Juniper Road and known as Lot 4 of Evergreen Industrial Park, map 18, parcel 47.06, parcel owned by Tentex LLC. Mr. Mangum, if you could read those 6.2 comments for me.
Item number 1, submit drainage calculations for all of the proposed stormwater infrastructure components. Item 2, if the PC desires to set the site reclamation bond at this time, staff recommends setting the bond at $25,000.
Thank you, sir. Representative here tonight? All right, sir, if you could just state your name for me.
Brian Dashner.
Sir. And I believe the first comment on our staff review, they did submit drainage calculations this week. I don't know if we've had a chance to review or look at them.
That's correct. We received those today. I have not had a chance to review those. I would suggest to you that there is plenty of real estate to make the retention pond larger if necessary, based on my review of those calculations, and that would not affect the layout of the site. So I wouldn't be uncomfortable with a contingent approval in that regard, but ultimately that's your decision.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, was the landscaping plan that's shown here, was it provided to the tree board for approval?
No, sir, that's a great question. Do you know that if that has been sent over to the city arborist?
Yes, we talked to Mike, and him and Tony got together and did all that.
Okay.
Because first it was the size of the trees, then it was species of the trees, and it was the number of trees that were displaced that we have to come back with. And we even marks now where we have even agreed, if need be, that we do not just fence or not landscape, but both. So we're willing to do the fence with a landscape combination to make sure that everybody's satisfied. On the screen.
Yes, sir. No, I appreciate that. The tree board did not have quorum last week, but it was not on the agenda. We didn't get the plans, and I don't think Mr. Berkeley had seen it at that time, last Tuesday, but maybe he saw it end of the week or something like that.
Okay.
I can state that I did provide the engineer with the approved tree list, the approved shrub list, and the specifications for the screening.
Perfect.
And can you confirm that Mr. Berkeley approved? No.
I cannot confirm that.
Well, I mean, with this being a commercial building, I mean, it has to go in front of the tree commission.
We met with him at the pre-plan, what was that?
At the staff review meeting.
Staff meeting, and, you know, agreed, just like last time. I mean, I agreed with anything and everything, including, they kept saying they could come up with a dollar amount if they just wanted me to write a check, which I agreed to, but nobody came up with a dollar amount either.
That was-
So, what we're trying to do is just proceed with dirt work so we can, you know, move forward.
And I was at staff review, and he's telling it exactly like
Over there.
what he said.
I guess the question is that sufficient when it's the requirement that actually go before the tree board, however?
I don't know if it's necessarily, has to be approved by the tree board, and Will maybe can speak better to that. We had a heavy, in-depth discussion last year about that. I think we definitely want the city arborist to review it. Can you hit any more on that of the process? And so we have a tree inventory, tree density worksheet, which is required. But does the plan itself need to be through there? We're going to open this discussion.
Historically, the way that we have interpreted the tree planting and protection ordinance, it's gone through several iterations over the course of the past decade and a half. I know there may be some, I guess, understandings of what the initial intent was for that ordinance. It's written currently, there is not a requirement for site plans to receive approval from the tree board prior to coming to the planning commission. That was a practice that was established probably 7 or 8 years ago, just as a courtesy. And I think there was some confusion resulted as a result of that courtesy being established on where the authority lied. But I would contend to you that the tree commission, while they are in full control over the approved tree list and shrub list, and recommend to this board on landscaping requirements that are in your book, I do not think it's in their purview to review specific plans as they're submitted. And I know that's been the topic of several lengthy discussions, and that is part of what we're currently doing in our review of all your documents, is to establish a clear, I guess, submittal and approval path for those landscaping elements. The courtesy that was established, the tree board primarily during those years would look at just the species of tree that was being proposed along with the tree density worksheet. However, there are additional landscaping requirements in your zoning ordinance and your design review that, for whatever reason, the tree board didn't always include in part of their review and approval. So in an effort to be streamlined and have a one-stop shop where there is a central control, I guess, or command of all landscaping requirements, and in conjunction with the language in the design review manual, zoning ordinance, and tree protection ordinance, it was determined that the Planning Commission ultimately has full authority over individual sites. Again, with the understanding that Mr. Berkeley was included and has been included in the staff review. He has the opportunity to review these plans for species and tree density worksheets, and he offers his feedback to staff in the form of review comments if he desires to. So that's kind of the iterations that it's taken over the years.
And so for the design review manual, they would create the tree density. Who reviews that inventory list to confirm what's going to be removed, if there's funds due to the tree bank fund, if more planting is required? Because I know we have an option where you can pay to the tree bank fund, or you could plant more trees to increase, to make up for what you're taking down. So is that something that you guys review?
Yes.
Okay. And was there anything on this tree inventory sheet? I mean, was there a certain number of over 10-inch being removed, or?
My understanding is they have complied with the landscaping requirements that are in place.
Thank you, sir.
I had a question about the tree inventory. My understanding from the last time we were here that many trees had already been taken down and burnt before it was part of the inventory. How do we deal with that?
As part of our review on your documents, our suggestion is going to be to formula, because there is really no way to deal with that. What we're going to suggest, what we would suggest to you is, instead of trying to impose a penalty for removing trees, put in place an encouragement and a reward for keeping and retaining trees of a certain size and larger. And so, for instance, if you have landscaping requirements for a new site that says a new site is required to place, let's say, 20 trees that are 2.5-inch DBH, diameter at breast height. If they're required to plant 20 trees based on the landscaping requirements, that's what they're required. However, they can be credited to reduce that number if they retain mature vegetation on the site. Now, I don't have the formula for you or a recommendation for that formula for you tonight, but that's the mechanism that most communities utilize to encourage retention of mature existing vegetation. It's obviously much more simpler to enforce, because anybody can go out there after the fact that a site is built and say, yeah, they retained that 12-inch diameter maple tree, or no, they didn't. So if they didn't retain it, then they go back to the full landscaping requirements for new sites. And you have to make that formula balanced to where a developer will give strong consideration to retaining that mature existing vegetation. So economically, you have to make the formula to where whatever amount of new planting is required may cost more than if they tweaked their design just a little bit to retain some existing vegetation.
Mr. Gaster?
Well, I also believe that Mike looked at that on our plan, and we took that into consideration, and he said, informed Tony when he did that to take what the density was around there, you know, the places we did take, and use that kind of to formulate what was done.
And you, on that back, you have 8-foot transitional screening. Would that be a required screening, Will, or would that be
Yes.
increased? Is that above our requirement, or is that the requirement?
That, the transitional screening
With the
is,
8-foot spacing, or?
yeah, that is a standard requirement.
Okay.
And that is not included in the tree replacement ratio. So the replacement ratio is above and beyond what that screening is required.
Yes, sir, I apologize.
Well, that's all right. I'm just saying, gentlemen, I don't know if you all know, but I've been I own 7118 blah blah, which is in the same complex, been there since 2004, and plan to be there and be here and maybe even build more. So it's not like I'm just somebody coming in saying, here, I'm gonna build this and I'm gonna do this. I mean, I'm a longtime Fairview resident. I'm gonna be here working with you guys, I hope, for years to come. And that if there's anything, you know, that needs to be done, or you know, I'm willing to put, like I said, put more trees, pay the Arbor Society. My deal right now is, you know, like I told you last time, I'm just trying to get started doing dirt work. We still control the building permit, the occupancy permits. I just need to get going, so I have people ready to be on payroll. I'm already behind. I know that's not your problem.
And we appreciate your business more than you know, and keeping your business in Fairview, and we just want to make sure we get it right. You know, we just, and that's why we're up here, and so. Additional questions for the applicant?
Well, I don't really have a question, I have some clarification, because I think this is part of the confusion, and I may be totally wrong in saying this, but I did review your site, look at your site one day last week, and I think some of the confusion's coming because you're on Lot 4, correct?
Well, yes, but there's.
Lot 2 has cleared behind his,
Right, yes,
and I think that's because he cleared all the way to the fence.
right.
And I think that's where some of the confusion has come into play. It's,
So when you go down the road, you pass, what's the construction company's building there?
Northcutt?
Yeah, Northcutt. So this is the lot right after Northcutt, right?
Right, correct.
Yes.
But he's talking about the one before.
Before Northcutt, where the
Also
church used to be.
clear-cutted his whole
I didn't even
place.
notice that one.
He clear cut the back of it, so that's really sticks out now. So, you know, when you drive down 96 and you look behind Chili's house, I think, I can't remember his real name, but everybody calls him Chili. You see the back of those buildings now, and it's not from the clearing they done. It's from the clearing behind Lot 2.
So can we check on lot 2 and just see what's going on there when you get a chance?
Well, and I think the big issue here is, you know, we're trying to get a practice, and with the whole tree density, and, you know, the ideal is for y'all to receive a time schedule, what needs to come, and you meet those meetings. So it's not like, oh, well, we think you're Mr. Joe Blow coming in here, you're not gonna do, you know, it is about just setting that standard and where does it start. And that's kind of what it is. And with the confusion, it makes it hard. It's not like we want you to build and we want you to get your business, you know, in and up and going. But it's about the process and, you know, what we're required to do. But with Mr. Mangrum being at the meeting, and were you there, Will? Y'all know, and Chris, you were not, y'all both weren't, okay.
Our city inspector was there,
Who was?
Mr. Sullivan.
Okay. And you were there, and you clarify also that Mr. Berkeley, you know, looked over and.
I know he looked over, and I know there was a lot of discussion about it. It all seemed positive.
So we just need something back, I mean, before we could move on, saying that. I mean, we could approve it with the contingent of the approval of the tree board. And, you know, and I believe you that you talk to them and stuff, but it's just more about having record and setting it straight. From sitting on the tree board, know, and from discussions from different boards, that the ideal is we want everything to go in front of the tree board. Just to have that expert eyes look over it and then make recommendation. The board has the planning commission has final say, but they're making recommendations and working with the developer. So, you know, but I can,
And we're bouncing around topic a lot, and I apologize to you guys, but last year, one thing we did, we had the Tree Board Planning Commission joint workshop, and one thing that we tried to hit on was tree board setting the parameters or the scope of what would be required, and then the city arborist being involved in that staff review, possibly come to planning commission meetings to try and maybe help prevent that extra meeting where if last Tuesday they're in that meeting and they're trying to turn around plans again to the next Tuesday or things, but trying to, they set the parameters, the city arborist kind of really is the review or the professional, and then the engineers as well review the density and stuff like that, but. And that's what all open for interpretation of how we're going to change it forward, but.
I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented, contingent upon tree board's approval. Whether that be planting more trees or whatever they decide. And also setting the reclamation bond for $25,000.
Just one point of order is the tree board meeting for July is set for July 3rd. And so they do not have a July meeting, and so it will not be until an August meeting. So I don't know if you say city arborist can review it or just a.
Tree board or park board?
The tree board and park board that were canceled for July.
well, and I would say that would give you even more reason to be able to accept a written, you know, for the city arborist.
From the city arborist.
Yeah, a written statement saying it meets the requirements.
I will amend my motion to not necessarily have to have approval from the tree board, but from the city arborist.
Is there a second? Mr. Anderson, second. Discussion?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Stucco embossed panels, does that qualify as a masonry product?
I'm glad you went to design. So the design requirements in industrial, do they speak to the design review? And so,
We went back and forth, we did initially plan metal on the front in addition to brick. And metal's not allowed in the design manual, nor is it allowed in the covenants. So they did change it to the stucco embossed.
okay.
I provided them with the design
Okay.
qualifications.
Mr. Burke, does that answer?
That does, thank you.
What did you set bond at?
25,000, just like the engineer's recommendation.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
He was wrong.
I apologize, yes, sir.
I need to talk to Mike, or is someone here gonna talk to Mike?
So I know Mr. Hall called me last week before the tree board and told me he was trying to get me a copy of your landscape plan, and maybe it hadn't come in yet or something, because he wanted to bring it to the tree board that night. So we'll get, if you can get with Ms. Costanzo and she can get it to Mike, and then we'll just get his blessing, he can give it to her and be good to go.
And of course, I want that in writing, some kind of document, yeah.
Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, we will go to item 7.1, new business. Recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, rezoning a property requested by Duke and Duke LLC, 1.08 acres, property located at 7116 Horn Tavern Road, tax map 022, parcel 15.02, Current zoning R40, proposed zoning R15 PUD, parcel owned by Ronnie Pruitt Jr.
I will recuse myself from 7-1 and 7-2, please.
Mr. Mitchell, if I could get you to read the staff comments on item 7.1 for me.
7.1, number one, it should be noted that the proposed PUD rezoning request is an amendment to a previously approved PUD rezoning for portions of the subject parcels. The previous approved PUD and PMDP included 47 lots on 21.4 acres. The proposed amendment is for 55 lots on approximately 24.36 acres. Number two, provide a sheet that shows the proposed PMDP in context with the previously approved PMDP and clearly eliminate the areas that were not a part of the previously approved PUD rezoning action. 3, rezoning application for parcel 15.01 and 15.02, total 2.4 acre plus or minus acres. 1.08 acres for parcel 15.01 and 1.4 acres for parcel 15.02. However, the plan state 2.96 acres are being rezoned. Also, the PMDP labels the adjacent Lot 2 of the Raymond and Bowie Pruitt subdivision, or Brownlee subdivision, as parcels 15.02, but is actually 1503. Correct as necessary. Provide WADC approval for Phase 2 to contain 33 lots, which exceeds the maximum of 20 sewer taps per phase. Alternately, a Phase 3 can be added that would reduce Phase 2 to no more than 20 lots.
Thank you, sir. If you could just state your name for me and just give us a brief breakdown here.
Gary Martin, engineer. I understand all the comments, and we don't have a problem. We can make all those corrections.
And so you have an existing behind these properties, and you're trying to acquire the property to add to it, is that correct?
Yeah, there was a submittal made that shows that, actually, there was a comment made that we should show the properties to be added, and we did. I don't know, you should have this in your packet. It shows the hatched area as property to be added.
Okay.
Y'all see that? Y'all have one that looks like this? You do? Okay.
What's the date on it?
Pardon?
What's the date on that one there?
June 2nd.
When I was reading this letter that you've added to it, it says this rezoning will keep at least 17 Fairview residents working. I wonder, that may be out of left field, but I just wonder how that's gonna work, because I've never known a subdivision to keep people working after the subdivision's built.
Is that with our letterhead on it?
Yes, it's on both of these. It's from Duke and Duke.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what, I mean, we added 8 lots. Maybe they're counting 2 people per household. I'm not sure exactly.
I just don't understand why it's in there, that's the reason I asked.
Yeah.
Is the implication that if we don't approve this, we're putting 17 people out of work?
Maybe there's 17 more people living here, I have a feeling one of my guys that was helping with this may have talked to Tim, and there might have been something they talked about that I don't know about, and I hate to admit that. I think it's, there might have been, and so what, the reason for that, wasn't there a comment that was made that prompted that?
Not certain.
Not that I remember.
No? Because usually when we prepare a document to go with the resubmittal, we repeat the comments that are made and put a response with it, so.
Well, I understand the subway gonna keep people working, but I don't understand the subdivision.
Yes, move on now.
I wish, we still don't have the overhead working, I guess. Ms. Taylor, is that working now?
And so,
Like the spotlight for it'll come up on the projector? Give me a minute, I can make it work. Okay,
Ken?
because I want to see exactly where,
and so we're not seeing the proposed new lots now, right now, we're just seeing those.
You
so-
you were given, what, 3, there was at least 2 sheets.
here you want mine?
And so this one shows the proposed property. One of the others shows the additional lots.
I just have one sheet.
Yeah, I just have one.
This is the one that would be after those proposed lots were rezoned, correct?
Will, did you get all the sheets?
That's why I'm confused and like,
I mean, it's lot 2, right?
we're just all trying to figure out what exactly. So if we can get that projector going, we can put it up and see it.
What now?
This is actually, parcel 3.
You'll pick it up.
But okay, so someone on some of you on the board up there, like this gentleman, has that drawing, right?
I don't think you do.
So how did, you've got it, but, pardon?
He's looking at the same one. I think we all just got this one here.
No, I don't have that drawing.
Yeah, this is the only one.
So we're seeing the 55 lots.
Okay,
And what just threw me off was the top left corner is calling out that parcel and like it's not part of the 55. But now you can see, so the 2 hashed areas are the 2 additional areas. The top left one is the item 7.1 and then the bottom one will be 7.2, correct? And so that was the previous proposed layout of the subdivision as well.
In the middle section.
Or this layout here. And so now what we have is the new proposal, which includes that middle strip and includes that top left strip, those 2 hashes there. That's the old.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I can't
this is the
follow
old-
where you're at.
Around.
This is the old layout. This is the new section that's being proposed, 7.1. This is 7.2. These are the two pieces of property that they're wanting to add to it.
Yeah, that's this right here, 26, 27, and 28 is going up there, 7.1.
And then they make these long and skinny.
Yeah, long and skinny, and coming.
So both this drawing and the new layout were submitted
Okay.
on June 5th.
This is definitely better.
Yeah, I just think-
And so if they're not in the staff comments, open space requirements, amenities, things like that are all satisfied. Okay.
And did you see both? And you know, I mean, what we're voting on? This is,
Yeah, I haven't seen what's on the screen right now. That was not for my purposes. That was for your purposes to have an understanding of what the prior approved plan looked like. Minus the two areas that are now before you to be added to that prior approved plan. So the plan that the one sheet you have in your packet is what's being proposed.
okay.
That is it. This that's on the screen now was just a complement for you to be able to see what was previously approved and how it correlates to what is being proposed now, if that makes sense.
And so by them capturing these two new parcels, they're asking to add 8 additional lots to the previously approved 47.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm hoping the engineer understands that these documents were filed May 19th. However, on May 18th, the Board of Commissioners did pass a resolution that put in place a moratorium on rezoning any property to an RS-15 or anything higher than that.
Would this not be them coming back and making an amendment to their PUD that already existed, which they can do, but they have to go before the board to make the changes?
I understand that, however, we're having to actually take property that's zoned RS-40 currently and rezone that, which the Board of Commissioners can do, but just understand that as of right now, there is a moratorium in place that would prevent that.
But it doesn't prevent the planning commission from voting on what they want and making the recommendations to the board.
Correct.
The board can have, if they want to stick to that, then the board can do yay or nay. But as the planning commission, you're just voting on what's before you.
So this is a PUD, though, that has already gone through, and this has been approved.
Correct.
This version.
This version has been approved.
Right.
So it would just be,
Making this
is
change.
this acceptable and in line with what we are looking to do as Fairview continues to grow?
It's comparable as adding the same style houses, same subdivision. You would just be basically rezoning, and it would become one new PUD. Yeah. But either way, they're going to have a PUD with 8 less houses, or they could utilize this property that has come to them and pass it. Now, it is going to make it difficult. Commissioner Burks is right. The PUD issue has come up, and, it's there. They'll take the chance of going in front of the board that it may or may not be approved. But as a planning commission, we are still within our rights to approve a plan that's in front of us.
Now, I just want to make sure, and I'm not saying that should affect the vote here at the planning commission level. I just want to make sure the engineer is aware of that. that that's going to be an issue.
Well, I think you need to make,
going
the
forward.
owner is, and developers, that one needs to make sure, I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
just to pass on that information if
Right.
they don't have it.
yeah.
So
I
are there,
can't stop the owner or developer from submitting something if he wants to submit it,
Oh, without a doubt, I just want to make sure he has that information.
yeah.
and so are there currently 2 residents on these 2 pieces of, these new
Yep, and they've
properties?
decided they don't want to be there.
And so, I think then you just, it's kind of in the gray area of amended with these 2 small parcels that are kind of in the inner lining of this development right now is it better like that with 2 pieces, with 2 pieces of parcels cutting into it? Or is it better as an overall scheme and plan to where the road comes in, the sidewalks would continue all the way out to Horn Tavern on that outside piece there? Just some things like that.
Right, and I think some common sense could apply here. I mean, the detention pond with the new property is better configured if you'll look on the new plan. So,
This is a much better plan.
And I think if we deny or pass, maybe making sure we add some comments to the board of why, or the reasons why we thought it might fit, absent of that change would be just good to add some notes to them.
Well, and I think for the number one reason of these pieces of property are now sandwiched in or, you know, surrounding and don't wish to, you know, live there is, you know, a good enough recommendation for me.
I think the new plan looks better and probably is more functional. But that's an issue for another day.
I make the recommendation if they follow, you know, everything the engineer has recommended, that I make the motion that we approve.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Additional discussion?
My only thought on this, I haven't been on this is my second meeting here. Nobody has said anything to me about anything goes on in this town except for this. And the people on Horn Tavern don't even want this out here. And now we're gonna put 8 more houses out there, and they didn't want the first 55 or at that thing. So, it's a problem for me whenever, I haven't even been here that long, for 3 different people to come up and say, I know you're on the planning commission now, and we don't even want that out there. So it's a decision for me to you know, we're adding 8 more houses and they didn't want the first one, so.
Just to play devil's advocate, I haven't been contacted by anyone on Horn Tavern. Maybe you're more approachable, but just using that as a line to, please send us a comment, you know, let us know what you think about these things. Give us your input.
I drink a lot of coffee at the coffee house.
I know.
And they know me.
Well, and I do hear you. I mean, as subdivisions come along, and that's one area that the people there, just because they have issues with the road and everything else, they don't want, you know, a lot additional developments. And we've always had a lot of people come in. But here's the deal. These 8 houses, in my opinion, to complete a subdivision that, looking back at it, probably shouldn't, in my opinion, shouldn't have been approved with a middle section. So it would be rectifying a mistake, in my opinion. You know, it just makes it hard for these residents that their property all around them is going to be developed, and it's going to change their home, not to give them that. And then this would be fitting to the subdivision. Now, I think when you get more people on Horn Tavern, and then you're going to get a couple subdivisions with 50 more, then that's probably when you really are going to want to take your stand if that's how you know, feel. But, you know, in the whole, I know 8 houses are 8 houses, but in the whole scheme of things, you got to look at the bigger picture.
And just one thing to point out is, and a true R15 would be 15,000 square foot lots. These lots, the smallest looks like it's right around 12,000. Some sit around 13, 14, 15. There's some 18 or 20. So it's pretty close to that 15,000 range, or closer than some of the proposals that we've seen that have come in at 7 or 8 and half of that R15 number. It would meet the medium land use density map in that area there. What is our threshold for a traffic study? Has there been a traffic study, or does the 8 lots making it 55, 10, the number's like 100 and some other?
It is 100, but that doesn't preclude you from requesting one be performed.
Well, I know this one's already been through everything, and it's coming back. I wasn't here when it went through the first time. I'm not gonna be against it because it's already been through. Probably the next time they will have a
Having a traffic study. It's a narrow, dangerous, I hate to say dangerous, but there's parts that are, difficult to drive. So, but with it only being an addition of 8, I think you could say that it would be a burden to ask now over 8. I don't know. But it's the consensus of the board.
And so we have a motion for approval with the, including adjustments from the staff review comments, and there's a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Martin. So item 7.2, recommendation to the Board of Commissioners rezoning property requested by Duke and Duke LLC, 1.4 acres, property located 7112 Horn Tavern Road, tax map 22, parcel 15.01, current zoning R40, proposed zoning R15 PUD, parcel owned by Ronnie Pruitt Jr. Mr. Mitchell, if you could read 7.2 for me.
7.2, item 1, it should be noted that the proposed PUD rezoning request is an amendment to a previously approved PUD rezoning for portions of the subject parcel. The previously approved PUD and PMDP included 47 lots on 21.4 acres. The proposed amendment is for 55 lots on approximately 24.36 acres. Number 2, provide a sheet that shows the proposed PMDP in context with the previously approved PMDP and clearly delegate the areas that were not a part of the previously approved PUD rezoning action. Number 3, the proposed rezoning application for parcel 1501, 1502, total 2.48 acres, 1.08 acres for parcel 1501, and 1.40 acres for 15.02. However, this plan states 2.96 acres are being rezoned. Also, the PMDP labeled the adjacent lot 2 of the Raymond and Brownlee Pruitt subdivision as parcel 15.02, but is actually 15.03. Correct is necessary. Provide WADC approval for phase 2 to contain 33 lots, which exceeds the maximum of 20 sewer taps per phase. Alternately, a phase 3 can be added that would reduce phase 2 to no more than 20 lots.
Thank you, sir. So this is that bottom section of that map we just saw. We saw the top left. This is that strip right in the middle, same project, middle piece. Any additional comments, Mr. Martin, Mr. Dillon?
Yeah, procedurally and moving forward with the assumption that this will also move forward the recommendation for approval, just like the prior item did. I think it's appropriate before it comes to the Board of Commissioners to revise the application so that it is a single application for both the two new parcels and the previously rezoned PUD parcel. Because it's all one or nothing, it's all or nothing in this particular rezoning proposal. So as a matter of record keeping and keeping a clean slate moving forward, I might recommend that the applicant, between now and when it goes before the Board of Commissioners, submit a revised or amended application for the entirety of the previously parcel 15.00, 1501, which is one of the new ones, and 1502, which is the second new parcel, as a single application to be heard singularly by the BOC, and therefore, if it does move forward, then there would be a single ordinance that would replace wholly the previous PUD ordinance that was passed with this new preliminary master development plan as a part of that rezoning. Don't think it's necessary to do tonight. I think it's clear what's being proposed before you tonight, but I think moving forward that will help when all of us are gone in 10 years, 15, 20, not dead, hopefully, but maybe not serving in our capacities as we are today. Somebody looking back can clearly see that this came afterwards and it superseded and voided the previous PUD that was approved.
It wouldn't affect that.
Correct. Any action on what's being proposed to the BOC in the future would have no effect on the prior approvals that were issued by the this board and the BOC.
Thank you, sir. So item 7.2, any motion?
Motion to recommend with the staff comments.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Mr. Martin. Item 7.3 has been removed, so the new 7.3 will be Old Nashville Road, final master development plan and construction plans, 39 lots on 13.17 acres, property located along Old Nashville Road, tax map 42, parcel 74, parcel owned by Jennifer Rose Buford. Mr. Mitchell, if you could read the 7.4, new 7.3 comments.
Number one, verify that lot 18 is buildable without requesting a variance. Number two, add a note stating lots 1, 2, 3, 22, and 23 can only have access off the internal streets. Number three, add a note stating lots 1 and lots 22 cannot have access off of the main access drive. Number four, verify that proposed trees along western property boundary will not conflict with proposed stormwater infrastructures and associated grading, revised as needed. Note 5, verify that there is adequate fire hydrant coverage due to the moving of the fire hydrant from between lots 18, 19, and lots 13, revised as needed. Note 6, note that while the plating of the subdivision must be done in phases to accommodate WADC requirements, the construction plans that have been submitted are for the full build-out of the proposed subdivision. As such, approval of the proposed construction plans will require all of the proposed improvements to be installed or bonded prior to the submittal and recording of phase 1 and final plat. That is not the intention of the applicant. The construction plan should be revised to indicate what improvements will be associated with phase 1 and what improvements will be associated with phase 2.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Martin,
Yes, sir.
staying with us?
Yes, sir. Do you need me to respond to any of these specifically?
If you do have answers on any of those staff comments or comments you want to make to them, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, Lot 18 is buildable, and we can certainly add notes regarding 2 and 3. On 4, the grading will be done, obviously, before trees are put in, and I don't see a problem. But we'll check that. 5, we'll check. 6, the construction plans do show the phase lines on the utility sheets, certainly in plan view. I mean, we can make it more clear if we need to. So it's certainly not, it's certainly intended to be built as 2 phases as shown on the plat that you have. And our construction plans have, delineation of phase 1 and 2 on the construction plans. And, we can add more notation so that it's really clear.
I got 2 questions.
Okay?
Yes, Mr. Anderson?
Number one, I personally don't really fully understand the cul-de-sac rule that Fairview has. But to me, if you're gonna do this in phases, if you got 38, how many lots it is, you're only gonna get 20 attachments. To me, this thing should have had a second entrance to the front road. That way you could have phased it out and not had traffic, new construction traffic down to where the existing homes are going to be as you travel through this thing. It could be phased a little more convenient to the buyers. Number 2, my second question is, you've got this one stamped private roads.
Yeah, they're not private. That's a mistake.
Okay. Somebody should have reserve funds if you're going to do private roads.
We're not doing private roads.
Okay. That's my only 2 comments. Fire trucks and everything else on this single entrance, you really got a bottleneck built up here even after the thing is complete. So to me, the 2 bulbs on the front of the subdivision should have been ingress, egresses. I think you could have platted this where you would not have lost any lots, maybe 1. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. And just one note to add that the fire marshal does sit in the staff review meeting and reviews plans and adds any comments as well. If that helps you clear your mind or makes you.
No, I already see it's gonna go this way, I just wonder.
On this, the plan y'all presented last time, it had, or at least to the board, it had the landscaping had lots of trees. Did y'all lose some of the, trees? Didn't seem like there was as many.
Where did you guys end up with on the sidewalk on Old Nashville? No sidewalk, is that correct?
There is a sidewalk.
Yeah, I thought there was some trees behind like lot 1, 2, and 3 in one plan I saw, but maybe not.
Well, even
No,
if
you
you
guys
take the big, and that's what I was trying to get to that page, but it's so loud.
Mr. Chairman, they changed the front lots 3, 2, 1, 22, and 23, so they're forward facing on the Old Nashville Highway, so you're not seeing the back of houses. And then they did include the sidewalk, looks like a 5-foot sidewalk all the way down.
Subdivision itself now is gonna have the backside of those 5 lots.
Pardon?
You got your lots 3, 2, and 1, 22 and 23, are they gonna be fronting Old Nashville Highway, or are they gonna be fronting in the subdivision?
Well, that's what he was just saying.
They front Old Nashville Highway.
With a driveway from interior subdivision.
So once you're inside, you'll just see the backside of the house.
Right. And your driveway will still come in from that inside interior, so we won't have driveways coming to Old Nashville. Any additional questions? Who is long-term responsible for maintaining the buffer trees and things?
I mean, there'll be an HOA. Yeah.
And we have those documents submitted as well? Okay. Has the buffer trees been approved according to the species list with the city arborist and? Have you looked at it? Have you compared them to the species list? Is that?
I believe that it matches, but we can do the same thing.
Yeah.
If you want to, Mr. Martin and Mike.
Make it contingent upon a letter from the city arborist that everything is approved.
With me not being at the staff review, and Mr. Sullivan can't quite recall the discussion, so we'll just make sure that that the arborist is okay with it.
And it is great to see that buffer around the outside.
Yeah, they did a really good job of working with the city in getting those requirements met, and transitional buffer, I think will really help with the surrounding RS4 design.
Is there not a tree legend supposed to be on any of these plats that would identify?
It's in the construction,
Species and then numbered?
it's on the construction plans.
So the
yeah.
last page on the big document will be,
Yeah, I'm not opening that thing.
It's a really loud one.
any additional questions? The legend will be on that other side. If you flip that, the legend will be, there you go.
Are these things supposed to have some kind of green space or
Around the exterior, is that,
or it seemed to me, and I don't know.
For open
I'm
space.
asking the question because I don't know. And if it is, the only thing I see is retention pond.
The open space is identified on the sheet you have on the site plan, using the language used in your regs as far as improved, unimproved.
and so you'll see a call, required 5% of calling, now it's 6. So what is the improved area?
Well, it's let's see here. The improved area is, oh my goodness, what have we got here? It's the improved area. East boundary.
I want
Well,
to
the
say,
perimeter, pardon me?
wasn't there some kind of gazebo type thing that was,
I mean, the perimeter buffer is improved, it's landscaped.
And so just for a little clarification, the open space would have been discussed on the a preliminary or site, and so there should have been some discussion there. It would have been on the staff notes Or, I guess, if it meets the required improved. Typically, there would be some kind of, small amenity or something, and I can't recall from the initial reading. So you guys have created an additional 20-foot buffer around the backside of the lots
That's right.
and planted trees, and so maybe you're calling that an improvement because you're allocating.
Yeah, it meets your regulations, right. Mhm.
Will, is that your thoughts? Is that good enough for what we require of a PUD?
Give me just a second, I was pulling up the preliminary plan.
Okay.
Got a mess.
You recall when they presented it?
What is that rear setback on those lots? Is it 20 on the backside? Here it is. I found- Just staring right at me.
It's 20, right. It's 20, yeah.
And then you have an additional 20-foot.
Yeah, the buffer is dedicated unbuildable area. And it just it increases green space for each lot. So instead of having a central, this subdivision is too small for a centralized amenity. I think everyone here would probably more prefer to have, a dedicated buffer at the back of their lot, which just further enhances their living environment as opposed to having a very small amenity area, which you would do nothing more really than just provide open space for them to commune or go to. And these lots are already 12,000 square feet. People aren't going to go to an amenity when their lot is a quarter of an acre.
The proposed plan before you does not significantly deviate from the preliminary master development plan that was previously approved.
And so who maintains the buffers?
Well, this will have to have an HOA as well because it's got, detention area and the buffer area as well, which is not owned by the homeowner. I'm sure they'll maintain it anyway because it's part of their backyard. But
The HOAs without amenities just always worry me about, are they gonna dissolve and who's will end up maintaining it, but
Really, because we have no guidelines and they put them in place, but nothing's to make them stay.
Yeah.
And it's really a problem because then they call the city, they want to complain, and it's a civil matter and we can't enforce it. So it is a concern.
I can give two examples of the problem in Nashville. So it's on Brentwood Chase on Old Hickory Boulevard, and they made a lot of common area behind all the houses, but the way the thing was intertwined between the existing Hearthstone subdivision, a lot of those areas were not accessible by mowers because they would have to come across private land that was not part of Brentwood Chase to mow. So after the fact, the homeowners mowed them, and eventually they put the fences up and expanded them over into those expanded common areas. That's throughout Brentwood Chase, the subdivision I just came out of called Ashley Park, same thing again. We had like 4 houses that had green space in order to make everything comply to the square footage city behind those houses, but there was no easy access. So those people, as they bought the lots, they maintained it, and eventually they put fences up or tree lines, stuff you really can't control. So you have to put that in your mind going out, that it's not going to be able to be controlled. As much as you try, the homeowner association can't hire an attorney every time somebody builds a fence and try to sue them because there's not enough money. And so you end up passing off on that and fussing at the neighbors, but you don't really have a way to sue financially.
Would that common area be deeded with the individual lots, or would it be its own and separate
It would be owned by.
lot number?
It would eventually be owned by the HOA. That and the stormwater, the conservation buffer would be,
And the excess property?
Yeah, because
Okay.
technically if 36 come in and built a fence, they would have to build that fence right along.
Sharon, the
Yes,
subdivision regulations, does contain a provision for the dissolution of an HOA, such that if the city had to come in and maintain those improvements, they would, divide the charge between all of the homeowners. There is a legal provision in the subdivision regulations, which could be, called out in
I don't see
the
that.
HOA document or on the final plat, something to that, something that references that provision.
Then
Excellent.
you have a forced assessment, right?
Then we might need to have some neighborhoods might get some bills soon.
Well, and this is something as a board, and I'm sorry, a lot of this with so many new people and just changes, you have to hear it, and I'm sorry, but it's just, as we learn and grow together and make these changes. But as a board, we do have the requirement of the green space. And if we, in the first phases would have said, no, you didn't meet this, or this is not how we want the green space, we could have made those changes then and it would have worked. But it's a board, you got to stop and think, if you're going to allow, of course, there's some moratorium on the PUDs right now, but once it's not always going to be there, and once it's lifted, are you going to hold to requiring? Because is the advantage, are we doing the advantage of the PUDs all for the developer? Are we doing what's beneficial to the community? So basically, that's something that needs to be considered, and it has to be considered in those first, when it's presented before the board approves. Would you like to add anything, Will?
All right, any additional questions for the applicant? Anyone like to make a motion?
Chairman, I'm still a little unclear on the phasing of the construction. Mr. Martin, I recognize there is a phase line that's shown on paper, but the reality is the construction cannot occur and stop at those locations that is shown.
Okay,
Two things come to mind. The pump station that's proposed to be located in Phase 2 will actually serve Phase 1 and 2.
yep.
So we
Okay.
know that's going to have to be constructed, and I would anticipate WADC is going to require vehicular access to service that pump station. So I would think at a minimum, the box culvert would have to be in place. Maybe not the pavement all the way to the pump station, but at least stone base and possibly binder. The detention area also serves the entire subdivision, and it is also located in Phase 2. So my anticipation would be that that detention area would actually be constructed during Phase 1, even though it's shown on paper as being in Phase 2. So that's where my
Okay, all right.
confusion is as far
Okay,
as
I got you.
delineating the actual construction phases is probably going to be different than the actual platting phases. So if plans either need to be revised accordingly, or just state, and I don't know what the developer wants to do. If they want to go ahead and install the entirety of the construction, of the improvements, then we can move forward as is tonight. Otherwise, I think there needs to be some clarity on where the actual construction phasing begins and ends.
Well, we can do that. I think the intention was on the erosion control is that would be, there would be some separation there. But anyway, I mean, so we can work through this phasing. You know, as a contingent item tonight, right?
If there's not a desire for that, if the applicant doesn't have a desire to set a bonding amount, then yes, we can work through the phasing contingent tonight. But without knowing exactly where the construction phasing will lie, I'm not prepared to recommend a partial bonding amount for just a phase one construction effort.
We can have the phasing done just within a day or two. We can have the drawings revised to show, to be clear, include the stormwater and pump station.
And then wherever you're ending the phase one roadways, obviously there need to be some temporary cul-de-sacs there as well.
Any additional questions?
So, I mean, at this point, if we went with approving with the attorney's I gave you a new title, the engineer's recommendations, then who's going, I guess, you would review, Will, and then,
Right, what the I guess, leverage point is I would not agree to a pre-construction meeting until those plans have been revised. And we don't have a pre-construction meeting until development agreement has been executed. So I don't mind taking on that responsibility, as we've done some similar subdivision developments in the past. Because the design of the plans isn't really going, the only change in the actual design of the plans is showing a temporary cul-de-sac. As far as the actual construction plans, they're not going to change. It's just delineating on the sheet where they're going to actually stop construction with phase one.
Is that because that could affect the bond amount?
Correct, that would affect the bond amount. So I would suggest to you that based on those revisions, we would come back to you next month with a phase one bond amount based on those, where that construction line, phase line is shown.
Any additional questions? Anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve with the staff review comments took into account, along with a consent letter from the city arborist, and either resubmit the plans or Will's approval, or do it all in one to phase, to show the phasing of the two plans.
Possibly include that, removing that private roads note.
Yeah, yes.
We have a motion? Is there a second? Burke, second. Any additional discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you.
For hanging in there with us. All right, that is all our new business. We'll go to item 8, reports for discussion and information. City planner.
I appreciate Mr. Sullivan being here to take the minutes for the meeting. I apologize, there was some confusion with the packets of agendas. There was overlap of vacation, and a number of various staff helped to take care of the packets being submitted. So I do appreciate their assistance, and I'll make sure that we have that.
Thank you. Well, we can answer that real quick. Mr. Owen?
Generally speaking, myself or Kevin Chastain from our office attends. The planning director, Micah's been attending. Mr. Potter does not typically attend. Mr. Butler has attended a few of them, several of them. Then we have the fire chief, the police chief, the arborist, the parks, Keith attends. A representative from WADC has typically attended. They don't make every single one, but they are regularly present. And Mr. Hall has typically attended in the past. And each applicant has whoever they choose to bring is generally, I think, Mr. Butler, is that fair to say
sir.
for everyone?
And who shares that, who gives the notice to proceed?
In the past, we have conducted that meeting. In talking with Kristen, it's her desire and our desire to hand that process over to her. So then we would just be in attendance as a staff, and then Kristen would conduct that meeting and chair that meeting, and then compile any comments that would be a result of that meeting and a subsequent review, detailed review of the plans, and then distribute those comments to the applicant as necessary. And then ultimately, it would be Ms. Costanzo's call on if an application went forward to actually be on the agenda or not. I can tell you we've
For the final reading would be.
correct. We historically, our firm and myself has been very conservative in not allowing applications to go forward. We've just taken the stance that even though an application may not be fully complete, not being an actual city staff person, we didn't want to be considered obstructionists in any way. Now, under all circumstances, if that application was incomplete, we've always done our best to make note of that to the Planning Commission at the meeting to say, this is where it's deficient, but we still desire, or the applicant still desired to bring it before you, and then it's your decision on if you want to defer for more information or not. Along those lines, and the Mayor mentioned something tonight, and I think Kristen would appreciate some direction on this, because I know my assumption would be if a PUD application came into Kristen's office that was not associated with something that had previously had a PUD approval, my assumption, and I'm assuming Kristen's assumption, would be, I'm sorry, there's a moratorium on PUDs. The Planning Commission's not even going to consider that. Because I think that's a drain on your resources, on your staff resources to go through that practice when we know there's a moratorium. What was before you tonight was, in my opinion, in some gray area on whether it falls under the moratorium or whether it doesn't. As a result, since it did have some unique qualities as having some prior approvals associated with the majority of what the development was, I think Kristen and I both felt like it was at least worth bringing before this commission, and then if you've deemed it necessary to forward on to the BOC for them to make the determination on if it falls under the moratorium guidelines, then that's where we'll let that lay. I don't think we felt as a staff that it was appropriate for us to make that decision for this particular one.
Thank you, sir. It is also your report time, so if you have any additional comments.
I'm good.
Thank you, sir. City Attorney, Mr. Potter. Thank you, sir. Item 8.4, city manager announcements. We'll go to 9, communication from the planning commission members. Ms. Slaughter,
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Mr. Mitchell,
Nothing tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Powers. Mr. Mangrum,
I have nothing tonight.
Mr. Burks,
Nothing tonight.
Mayor Carroll.
Now y'all are gonna make me feel bad if I have something. You know I do. I just want to say that this is, I know it seems a little painful, especially some of these people, and we're discussing some of the things that we are, but I think it's important for us to learn, together, and especially as some of the changes that with different staff, and then just what Mr. Owen's work is and what they've begun to try to do. So I think it's important stuff. It's real important for everybody to remember it's everything is not going to be one size fits all. I think there are times where, like this PUD was brought, we are, that's when it becomes into the difference of what our job of BOC versus what the planning commission's job is, and does it meet the requirements? And of course, we have, staff and all that making the recommendations. But it's just real important to know that it's sometimes easier said than done. But I want to establish a rule and stick to it, and I want us to have the guidelines and see them follow through. But in a perfect world, we know that sometimes there's going to be those scenarios like tonight that we have to make those, tough decisions. So anyway, I think y'all have good questions, good job. Let's just, try to figure it out. And they're going to keep us informed as, hopefully we'll have that working document that we can all have and understand and move forward. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I think just Mr. Owen's comment for me would be maybe something the board could discuss at the BOC meeting of what their intention would be. Do you want staff to present it to planning, or do you just, they deny? I think my feeling would be similar, like you said, using resources you not necessarily do, and then I don't want something to come up here and the planning commission say yeah, and then the board just shuts it down and have a disconnect or look, not unified. Or so I think I would agree with that. Just kind of necessarily not put it in front of us at all and just reject and say we have a moratorium right now. But that's just my 2 cents. Thank you, staff, for everything. Thank you, everybody, for tonight. That's all I have. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.